we must realize that it was a Vishwa Hindu Parishad function in the High Court premises at which this High Court judge speaks, and he speaks in terms which are not only unbecoming of a High Court judge, but contrary to the constitutional requirements of fraternity, contrary to the secularism which is part of the basic structure of the constitution, and in fact it almost looked to me like a job application for a political role at some point of time. I would not be surprised if any set of people who hold the judge accountable were to consider why should the person continue to sit in the seat undisturbed till 2026. Is invoking not necessarily the constitution, but he is invoking a spirit of majoritarianism, where he says that this country will run on the basis of what the majority wants. Well, I do hope that the judges take the right lesson from Justice Yadav's episode. I think about 400 years ago, Bacon said that a much-talking judge is like an ill-tuned cymbal, Tymbal. It causes dissonance. So the point is that Bacon said it about judges who talk too much in court. In Bacon's time, in Shakespeare in England, Elizabethan England, there was not this 24/7 coverage. There was no social media and all that. Today, judges speaking not from the bench, but off the bench, also set political agendas. And I don't think the judge was right.
Hello and a warm welcome to HW News Network, your one-stop show, truth be told, for some engaging and thought-provoking conversations. Justice Shekhar Kumar Yadav of Allahabad High Court on Sunday said he had no hesitation in saying that the country would function as per the wishes of the majority group. He made these controversial remarks while delivering a lecture on the constitutional necessity of uniform civil code in an event which was organized by the Vishwa Hindu Parishad at Prayagraj, that is Allahabad. And what he said exactly, I'm going to quote certain portions and then I'm going to straight away head into the conversation with Supreme Court lawyer, veteran lawyer Sanjay Hegde. What he said, a small excerpt of that, and I'm quoting that: I have no hesitation in saying that this is Hindustan. This country would function as per the wishes of Bahu Sankhya, that is a majority living in Hindustan. This is the law. You can't say that you are saying this being a high court judge. The law, in fact, works according to the majority. Look at it in the context of family or society. Only what benefits the welfare and happiness of the majority will be accepted. This is what Justice Yadav was quoted as saying. And apart from this, he's also spoken a lot of things which were against the Muslim community. It was almost like a vitriolic attack against the Muslims. And he also went to the extent of talking about Gai, Ganga, Gita. So what does one make of these assertions made by Justice Shekhar Yadav? Is it not against the constitution? Is it not against the law? Should a judge be saying things like these at all in a secular democratic country like India? Joining me now is veteran Supreme Court lawyer Sanjay Hegde. Thank you, sir, so much for joining this evening. And I really wanted
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much and always welcome. And I really wanted to speak to you on this particular issue. I was really disturbed when I read this entire speech verbatim by Justice Shekhar Yadav. What does it really mean? I mean, I'm just seeing a repeat of what we saw during Justice Chandrachud's Aarti episode. It's almost like a rerun. It's almost like an example which has been taken out of Chandrachud's leaf.
I'm sorry. I mean, I'm a student and a great admirer of Justice Chandrachud for most of what he's done. And this is nothing like what Justice Chandrachud did. Justice Chandrachud had possibly an extra guest at an arti. Let's leave it at that. Justice Chandrachud did not go about uh, preaching hate to a supremacist organization. Now, at the end of the day, we must realize that it was a Vishwa Hindu Parishad function in the High Court premises at which this High Court judge speaks, and he speaks in terms which are not only unbecoming of a High Court judge, but contrary to the constitutional requirements of fraternity, contrary to the secularism, which is part of the basic structure of the Constitution. And in fact, it almost looked to me like uh, a job application for a political role at some point of time. You must remember that the judge was born in 1964 and was appointed in 2019, is likely to retire in 2026.
Yes.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but aren't Uttar Pradesh elections scheduled for that year in
Yes, 2020,
2026, if I'm not mistaken? So,
2027. Yeah. Yeah.
so yes, they 2027. So that would fit in brilliantly into into certain calculations. You can you have seen a similar pattern with a former judge of the Calcutta High Court, who is now a member of parliament elected on a BJP ticket. This is something which is very worrying for the judiciary. I think that this is not a speech which can be ignored as some speech of some judge at some function or the other. I mean, our judges, when they have a mic, like us lawyers, we tend to go overboard in our in the love of our own voices. But there are things which uh, can be said and should be said, and there are things which should not even be thought.
Let me go one by one, with various questions which emanate really out of this episode by what Justice Shekhar Yadav has said. First question which I want to ask you is that should a judge be visiting a religious function like this? We've discussed this time and again, but again, the big question now is after Justice Shekhar Yadav's pronouncements at this particular function, that should a judge at all say yes to a function which is organized by an organization like VHP?
See, it's not a religious function. It is not as if somebody was having a Samohik Ganesh Arti in the High Court premises and the judge visited that. Let us put it for what it is worth. It is a political function. It is a function of people who believe that Hindutva is a doctrine which separates one set of Indians and distinguishes them above another set of Indians. It is a doctrine that is alien to the constitutional character of this republic. In this republic, we are a secular republic. We treat all religions equally, and we do not disrespect any religion. That certainly is not what this function was about. And to give you an example, let us assume that there was a judge who happened to be a card-carrying member of the Communist Party and was a member of the Politburo. Now, supposing the Communist Party had a function in the premises, and then there were things that, the law cannot be a system of bourgeois preferences, and that the legal system operates as a class enemy to the working poor, or things like that. It may be your political doctrine, but when you are a sitting judge, you have no business uh, airing the doctrine in on a public platform, and thus taking away the impression of impartiality, which is supposed to cover all judicial conduct. You do not cease to be a judge when you are not sitting on your seat. From the time that you are sworn in till the time that you retire, you are a judge of the republic, and you represent not only the law, not only the constitution, but you also represent a model of decorum and propriety that should not be breached.
But what is worrying is that we often talk about, and in fact, with you only, and I don't even know how many interviews I've done with you on hate speeches. But when a judge indulges in a hate speech like this, what does one really say? Does he deserve to sit on that hot seat, which is imparting justice to the people? What does one say? And are we free to criticize a judge like that? All sorts of analysis is coming forth that, whether he did the right, whether he did the wrong. What does one say? And does he deserve to sit on that seat? And what is the way out? How do you punish such a person, a judge like this?
Well, there are measures that administrative measures that the paterfamilias of the judiciary, that is the chief justice of the day, can do. But apart from that, the only punishment that a judge in the Indian judge of a constitutional court in the Indian Republic faces is the possibility of impeachment. And let me put it this way: that there have been threats of impeachment motions, and an impeachment motion was uh, almost moved against somebody who's now a sitting judge of the Supreme Court, and who will be Chief Justice of India one day, for something which was misunderstood in a judgment of his. When the question came about merit and all that, there was the judge who's one of whose sentences in a judgment seemed to imply that those in the reserve category were less meritorious. That became a flashpoint. Now, with these kind of statements, I would be uh, I would not be surprised if any set of people hold the judge accountable were to consider why should the person continue to sit in the seat undisturbed till 2026.
Absolutely. In fact, for the viewers' sake, it's important that we discuss what all he said. I mean, in his address, he raised a question about why practices such as untouchability, sati, and johar were abolished within Hinduism, and yet the Muslim community continues to permit the practice of having multiple wives. This is what he termed as unacceptable. I want to go point by point, Mr. Hegde, so that we can understand that where he erred, where he has made mistakes. Now, to a statement like that, what would one say? He's saying that this is unacceptable, and it was abolished in Hinduism, and the Muslim community still continues to practice multiple wives.
See, let's put it this way: it was not unacceptable in Hinduism to have more than one wife. If you look at our mythology, except Maryada Purushottam Ram, almost every other divinity has multiple wives, right? It is only as a matter of law that after the passing of the Hindu Marriage Act was polygamy among Hindus abolished. And one of my great gurus, somebody I revere, Mr. Ram Jetman, had more than one wife. just before the passing of the Hindu Marriage Act. Okay, so it's not as if uh, uh, it was of some virtuosity endorsed by religious leaders that legal monogamy has been followed by the Hindu community. At the time of the passing of the Hindu Marriage Act, the the predecessors of the ruling party, the Jansang, in those days, also indulged in various things, saying that one of the reasons that the Hindu Marriage Act is being promulgated is so that Indira Gandhi can get a divorce. So it's not that any of these measures of social reform came with the blessings of the fundamentalists among the Hindus.
Right.
There were
He's
people who very strongly opposed it and who were great figures, including President Rajendra Prasad. So let's not make a virtue of what has happened in our history.
right.
Now,
But
does the Muslim community, just 1 minute, let me complete this thought.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
important. Does the Muslim community uh, have have more polygamy than Hindus? Legally, yes, but in actual practice, and I've been a government lawyer several times, and it's only after a man dies that two widows turn up for the pension. So I've seen many more on the Hindu community who practice it de facto, if not de jure.
Absolutely.
So
No, you're
so
right.
if you have to have reform and a uniform civil code, it can be with consent of everyone. It cannot be one set of values which are forced down the throat of everybody else. That's my point.
Yeah, you spoke about uniform civil code. In fact, I was coming to that point where he said that I'm just going to read that excerpt and then take your reaction, that you can't disrespect a woman who has been recognized as a goddess in our Shastras and Vedas. You can't claim the right to have four wives, perform halala, or practice triple talaq. You say we have the right to say triple talaq and not give maintenance to women. The right will not work. And then he says UCC isn't something that VHP, RSS, or Hinduism advocates. The country's top court also talks about it. This is the historic library hall of the court where so many great personalities have been. I'm speaking here among them, not just saying, I'm taking an oath that this country will definitely bring a single law, and it will bring it very soon. Now, Mr. Hegde, what would you really say? I mean, he's trying to sound so vehement, as if he's the authority, he's the one who's going to devise the law. It just seems as if he's straight out of the BJP playbook, and he's saying what BJP wants.
No, he may say what the BJP wants, or he may be saying what the RSS wants. I don't know uh, who he's invoking. Yes, it is a fact that the directive principles of state policy say that there should be a uniform civil code, but it does not say what kind of uniform civil code. And as yet, we do not really have a draft of a uniform civil code. There have been certain attempts by certain states as to how they even sought to regulate live-in relationships. They have a register for live-in relationships. I don't see how that is working out so far. The uh, He is invoking not necessarily the constitution, but he's invoking a spirit of majoritarianism, where he says that this country will run on the basis of what the majority wants. Now, sir, there are people who have majority identity markers as well as minority identity markers. There is nothing which is permanent about majorities or minorities. Please stop looking at them only through the religious lens. If you talk of religion, you and I might be in the majority. But if you talk of language, as a Kannada speaker in Delhi or a Tulu speaker, I would in Bangalore, I would be a minority. So, in each personality, there can be both majority elements as well as minority elements. And there is nothing wrong about uh, sticking to elements of your identity. What is wrong is to assume that majoritarianism will override the constitution. Why do you have a constitution? And why do you have constitutional guarantees? You have constitutional guarantees primarily to say that they are so fundamental to individual dignity that even if the majority is against you, these minimum rights are guaranteed. So to say that we will run by the majority and the constitution be damned, that is simply not on.
Mr. Hegde, he's also spoken about things like Gai, Ganga, and Gita. I'm just going to quote that in Hindi, what he said, that Gai, Gita और गंगा जहान की संस्कृति हर बाला देवी की प्रतिमा और बच्चा बच्चा राम है ऐसा मेरा देश है. This is how he's invoking the Ganga, the cow, and Gita as part of the Indian culture. It's very clear with what idea he's saying it, but a judge talking about that in the legal parlance in a secular country where we surely can't say that the country is going to be run by a majoritarian agenda. And if you have a sitting judge talking in that language, how would the people in the legal fraternity take this assertion by Justice Shekhar Yadav?
Justice Yadav must remember that he is not a judge only of the Allahabad High Court situate in UP. Now, if he goes to Tamil Nadu and speaks where there is no Ganga, are you excluding the people of Tamil Nadu, for instance? Or if he goes to Goa, where the BJP itself promises beef, then are you in consonance with the food habits of people in Goa? So this monocultural vision of the Indo-Gangetic plain is not India. The composite Indian identity is much greater than the sum of its parts. And saying that only this gives you a kind of superior citizenship, that is the implication of what he has said. That, I think, is simply not on.
He also said few things like, the children in the Muslim family, they are used to seeing and witnessing, how animals are cut and they are used to seeing the blood. Whereas the children in the Hindu family, they talk about the Hindu siddhantas, the values, and, they know what a puja is, what a mala is. So, those comparisons he's trying to draw. I mean, I'm just wondering that, before making a statement like that, didn't his conscience prick him at all that what he's saying? Of course, I mean, he must be having a certain idea in his mind, and that's why he said it. But what has a judge like Justice Shekhar Yadav today done to the Constitution? What is the kind of message he has sent to the newly, the new judges who are going to be coming as part of the judiciary?
Well, I do hope that the judges take the right lesson from Justice Yadav's episode. I think about 400 years ago, Bacon said that a much talking judge is like a ill-tuned cymbal, cymbal. It causes dissonance. So the point is that Bacon said it about judges who talk too much in court. In Bacon's time, in Shakespeare in England, Elizabethan England, there was not this 24/7 coverage. There was no social media and all that. Today, judges speaking not from the bench, but off the bench, also set political agendas. And I don't think the judge was right, even in his, even what he said about children watching animals being cut. Then what would the judge say to people within the Hindu community who routinely have eat meat. Their children also possibly will be watching animals being cut. What would he say to children of those communities within the Hindu fold, whose job requirement or whose caste job requirement is to fetch dead animals and to cut them up and to clear away the carcasses? There is a implicit sense of exclusion in what he has said, that these are cleaner and better people and these are unclean and worse people. There is a kind of snobbery and casteism which is implicit in what he said. I do think that the judge should possibly, he can't say he's been misquoted because he's all there on camera. He can at best say that he misspoke, that having considered his position, it is better that that he withdraws all these in case it has caused any offense to anyone.
My last question to you, Mr. Hegde, I know
There have
you're
been
in a
much better. Just 1 second. Just 1 second. There have been much better judges than this judge who have misspoken and have had to apologize. The great Lord Denning of England, whose books we've all read, he said something which was seen as being racist insofar as the Asian community was concerned. He denied being a racist, but nevertheless, after some time, he then retired from the bench.
My
Yes,
last
please.
question to you, and then I'll just wind up the show. That what is the big learning lesson, and what is the kind of damage he has actually done to the Constitution by saying a thing like that? Because he said from the podium that you should not say that I'm a judge and I should not be talking like this. He made this statement as part of his speech.
Uh, he said it in response to a particular word. He used a word which is not used in polite company. And he was aware that he was wrong, but he yet persisted in that error. I don't think that he did not mean all that he meant to mean. The question will be, what is the response of right thinking people? What is the response of the judicial administration? And what is the response of parliamentarians who, after all, still have the power to take him to task?
Thank you so much, sir, for joining. Thank you very much.
Stay ahead with our cutting edge news app. Instantly access the latest shorts in just 1 minute and breaking news in just 50 words. Download now for a smarter, faster news experience.